There's this amazing lady that does amazing activism work. And a matter of fact, they just came from DC where they did some amazing work. I understand from Kimberly that they became lobbyists, even though not official lobbyists and everything like that. But they did some amazing work. And I'm sure that Irene will be talking about that. As she knows, I'm a big fan of folks born in May, as my mom was born in May as well, and everything like that. As a matter of fact, I think they share the same birthday, if I remember correctly, and everything along those lines. But she is an amazing activist doing amazing work in terms of making sure that timeshares are doing what they're supposed to do and not cheating people out of their situations and all along those lines. So I'm gonna bring in Irene Parker, who is definitely an amazing lady, and she's got some amazing guests and everything like that. But it was just great hearing about the work that y'all are doing and how y'all are doing some great things in the sense of being lobbyists and making sure that this industry is being fair to the people the way that they need to be. Because like I said, I've definitely been involved in activism. I was born in Durham, which is an activist town and part of the Black Wall Streets and everything like that. But I was also raised in Warrenton and everything like that. And that's where the economic justice movement started, when there were some people that were using chemicals to dump stuff. And that's when my folks had their radio station. So they were actually doing the coverage of that whole industry and how the industry was exploiting people. And I know that you're making sure that people aren't being exploited by timeshares and everything like that. So I'm going to turn it over to you and definitely hear more of this great activism work that you've got going on, because you are truly an amazing lady. And I'm glad to call you definitely one of my friends, but also I'm a fan of the show and a fan of you.
Thank you, and you and Nick and Kim. There's never been more like family than all of us together. And part of our family are our guests. This is not my show. This is our show, and we have Lois from New York. This is and Mark, I don't have our banner at the bottom. If you can help us with that. That shows that we are Timeshare and Resort Developer Accountability, TARDA. And this is episode 98 of Timeshare Solution or Surrender. And we've had over 200 guests on the show now. And as Mark said, we were in Washington, D.C. for over a week, and there were a total of 5 volunteers that were able to meet with lawmakers. And we're not registered lobbyists, so that would make us grassroots. And I have never been so pleasantly surprised at representatives and senators' office willing to talk to us. And before we continue, we had 2 guests today. Carl had an unexpected trip to take his wife to the doctor today, so he will not be with us. But both Lois and Carl were to be here today to talk about Vacation Village, which has been acquired by Vacatia. Before we start with that, I just want to make sure that I don't forget, because of the volume of people reaching out, we are now, instead of an hour live, 25 minutes live and 35 minutes pre-recorded. Brian Rogers of Timeshare Users Group has been instrumental in promoting and supporting the Timeshare Transparency Act, Senate Bill 3502. And then as we go on down the line here for our 35 minutes pre-recorded, we have Kim, Sheila, Chad, and myself that talks about our self-advocacy process. And I'm going to ask Lois to comment on these provisions of the bill and how, if this had been law when she purchased, would have saved a big nightmare right now. The first is to include a single document itemizing all acquisition costs, mandate disclosure of modifiable fees. So this applies to both Lois and Carl. One example I use of this is we had Mark on the show, Mark had 3 Diamond Resort contracts. Diamond charged $1,000 per contract. That would have been $3,000. Hilton Grand Vacations acquired both Diamond and Blue Green and have adopted Blue Green's policy of 18 months of maintenance fees. So now they are asking $30,200 to take the points back. The third, provide clear documented options to exit ownership when you purchase. Again, this would have been helpful to Lois and Carl. I think it's safe to say that they would have not purchased had they known what a nightmare exiting would be. The fourth provision, grant buyers a 14-day penalty-free cancellation period. While this would help standardize, because it's 3, 5, 7, or 10 days, someone may post in, you had 5 days to cancel. Well, they might have signed in Las Vegas and the person asking might be in Florida where it's 10 days, but it won't help those who have been overpromised availability, promised they could refinance, promised they could rent it out and it would pay for itself, because you don't have access to the booking site until about usually 30 days. Allow buyers time to privately review. If you're going to buy a new house, you don't have to buy that day. And some of these timeshares cost as much as a home. And so the demand to buy the same day should be eliminated. And this bill would also, for the first time, allow federal oversight via the Federal Trade Commission. And I know that they are particularly concerned about the volume of active duty service members. Now, if you want, the only reason we were able to get all these appointments in meetings in DC is because of over 150 of our viewers and people who have reached out to TARDA have been able to request a meeting, and then we were able to meet with them. So in addition to Lois and Carl, we've had 2 other people reach out about Vacation Village. One of them, 3 of them have the same complaint as Lois, but the other one just reached out 2 days ago. She is, and she said we could share her name. Her name is Dina, and she lives in New York. And she stopped paying maintenance fees in 2021 and just recently received a bill for maintenance fees. The timeshare industry lobby is the American Resort Development Association, ARDA. They were recently quoted as saying, contrary to what exit companies tell you, it doesn't have to be difficult, time-consuming, or expensive to exit a timeshare. And I could talk on and on about why that is not so. So Dina is 100% disabled Air Force Reserve veteran. I believe she said she worked on rescues, as has been in the news recently. And when she contacted Vacation Village in 2021, they said, we will not take it back unless there's debilitating medical hardship. So what we're trying to get across is the fingers are pointed at exit companies, and she paid Sapphire cancellation. She didn't say how much, but she has paid that exit company. What we're trying to get across is that the developers are driving people to exit companies. So with that, Lois, go ahead and tell us about the rental disaster that you're experiencing. How long have you been with Vacation Village, and what did you buy?
Okay. Unfortunately, we've been with Vacation Village probably close to 25 years. We were one of the first people that were pushed to them because we had a timeshare down in Fort Lauderdale. They were trying to take the building, I guess, private, and they wanted to, quote unquote, buy us out, and they gave us supposedly heavily discounted rate to go with a new unit at Vacation Village at Parkway, which is in Orlando. We
What
were
was the
skeptical
reason for the change?
for the change. They were buying out the building, and I guess they
Oh,
were either going to convert it to condos or something, and they wanted to buy out the folks that still had timeshares at the building.
okay.
So we listened to their offer and said, well, we're really not interested, but it was what they called an RCI points offering. So while you were buying at Vacation Village at Parkway as your underlying timeshare unit, it was given an allotment of points in RCI, and those points could be used for a huge number of different options. Things like airfare, cruises, rent-a-cars, tickets to Disney, all with various points values tied to them. And I asked at the time, you know, how do we know this is going to stay in this format and that you're not going to change the number of points, you're not going to change the cost associated? And we were given this whole line of, oh, that wouldn't benefit us. We're not going to do that. Things are not going to change. And we kept questioning, and we were kept being told, oh, it's not going to change. They assigned us a week at Vacation Village at Parkway. It was week 30, which was in July. And I said, no, I really don't want that week, just in case we decide to use it. There's no way we'll ever go in July. They said it didn't matter. It was all going to be points anyway. That was the week we were assigned. Fast forward a number of years, the points system totally changed, went by the wayside, couldn't use it. It was a disaster. So we decided to opt out of the points, take the week, and we were looking to get out of it, but didn't seem feasible at the time. So we started renting it through their internal rental program. And over the years, we were receiving just about enough to cover the maintenance. So didn't make a huge difference. At least, you know, it wasn't costing a ton, maybe $100 or so out of our pocket. But as the maintenance fees kept skyrocketing, the amount we were covering ended up more and more. Well, the last few years, we've been getting between $700 and $900 in rental income. And the fees keep going up. They're now like $1,200. Well, last year, when Vacation bought them out, they changed over all of their billing systems, all of their reservation systems. And when I called to find out how much rental we were going to receive for our week, I kept being told, oh, it's coming. We changed over the system. We have to wait for the system to be fully functional, and then you'll get your check. Well, from July, I didn't get a check until February. And the check was for $250 even, with no explanation, no dates that it was rented, how many days, the amount, nothing. And when I called the resort, they said, oh, well, we pooled all of the rental info that we had and the revenue, and we just rounded it all out and pooled it, and everybody got $250, which was not the rental contract that I signed. And again, you know, maybe somebody put in a week that doesn't have a high rental revenue rate. But over the years, the July week has been very popular with families that have gone on vacation. And to only get $250 and now expect us to have to cover close to $1,000 for our maintenance that has more than doubled, if not tripled, since we bought the unit, it doesn't make sense. So we have decided not to pay our maintenance this year and see what happens, because we can't get out of this unit.
Now, were you renting just because you couldn't sell it?
Correct. And we couldn't
Okay.
use it. You know, going in July in 95-degree heat for two senior citizens just did not make sense. Plus, my husband is partially disabled. There's no way he was going to walk around Disney, particularly in that kind of heat. And unfortunately, there's no way for us to get rid of it. Nobody wants to purchase these units, and the places that do claim they can sell it, they want all kinds of upfront fees, and they're obviously not going to be able to sell the unit.
And there are sales agents, I know several of them, that I have a Florida real estate license that will not charge up front. But if you call them, they'll be honest with you and just say, try to sell it on Timeshare Users Group, TUG, or Red Week. But, you know, so you can say you tried to sell it, but,
Right.
and the AARP has provided a letter of support for this Timeshare Transparency Act, saying that seniors are disproportionately targeted. I don't know if I agree with that, because people are now 45 years old, they say, is the average age. Us older folks aren't always as concerned about our credit scores. And if you default on a timeshare loan, your credit score can drop up to 200 points. People used to always post that nothing happens. Someone just posted yesterday, nothing happens to your credit score if you don't pay your maintenance fees. A couple years ago, not everybody, but we started hearing about some 50 to 60 point drop. And the only time we heard of 100-point drop was Dave on our show. And Dave was with the Orange County, California Sheriff's Office for 29 years, adopted his 2 fetal alcohol grandchildren and moved to Tennessee to get better, more affordable coverage and medical coverage. And both Hyatt, which is Marriott, and Diamond would not let him out. Now, I'm hoping that Carl can be on next week. Carl has an amazing background. He was an intern for Senator John Kerry. He was while he was a student at University of Massachusetts. He's published 2 books, Growing Up Poverty Level, and also The War Never Ends, about homeless veterans. And his degree is in legal services education. He has a master's degree in criminal justice. So I immediately nominated him to the TARTA board. So we're hoping that he's going to be a board member. One thing he said, or either you or Carl, and the person that has multiple weeks is infuriated, and she reached out saying they want to do a class action. And that doesn't work. Class actions typically don't work for deception because all damages are not uniform, like mesothelioma that we hear, and you're forced to arbitration. So I did reach out to a law firm on her behalf, and I put in there, I know what the answer is going to be, that it's just such an uphill battle, and there's so many stall and ignore tactics that it's really not worth it. And that's indeed what that attorney did say. Now, and Carl, I thought maybe now Vacation, I will have to say, has been a little bit more accommodating. When was the last time that you asked Vacation Village if they would take the week back, Lois?
Last year, before they were sold to Vacation.
Okay, so one of our board members wrote to them every 2 weeks for 3 years and was able to resolve her dispute. And we have been hearing that they've actually been more accommodating. So what you can do is reach out to them and say that you can say TARTA, you heard from TARTA that they're being more reasonable than Vacation Village, and get an update from them, because the fact that you haven't paid your maintenance fees, you would pay them if they would take it back, correct?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. All right. So prior to Vacation, if you had medical hardship, they would charge $1,500. So you might want to go ahead and call them and tell them that you're delayed on, you didn't pay maintenance fees, because one attorney said if you continue to pay maintenance fees for the rest of your life, you're rewarding unethical corporate behavior.
Mhm.
And say that you want to exit responsibly, but if this is your only choice, what other product do you have to pay for the rest of your life, right? Or just default on it. The other question people have is, what happens if something happens to me, if I pass away? So your children have to know about it, or your heirs, and they have to file a disclaimer within the probate court. If it's deeded, this is deeded.
Yes.
Some are non-deeded right to use points, like the RCI points obviously are not deeded. And then you just have to notify the company that you don't want it, and don't try to use it or sell it or do anything that would make you look like you own it. And the one thing I do want to give an update on, we have about 5 more minutes, is we are extremely concerned, and I know the Federal Trade Commission is concerned about the number of active duty service members. I submitted a paper of 20 active duty service members with security clearance problems. One of our board members had to involuntarily leave military service. He was sold a 4-bedroom Westgate Resort for a family of 2 that he reported he was sold as a rental investment. 5 developers have been sued, accused of violating the Military Lending Act. The Military Lending Act exempts home mortgages. And so the argument was a timeshare loan is the same as a mortgage loan. Well, of course it's not. So Westgate lost in the lower Florida court. They appealed, they lost in the appellate court. And I just said that class actions don't happen. But in this case, it went back to the lower court, and Judge Dalton, who ended the oral arguments by saying, when I check out of a timeshare, I can't leave my underwear and toothpaste, he has certified class. So at least for Westgate Palace Resorts, we might see some relief for military buyers. We're going to be really closely following that. Now, Lois, this is April now. Have you received any calls or emails about demanding payment for maintenance fees yet?
I did receive another bill, but that was it. So at this point, I have not gotten any follow-up from them other than an additional bill. But I did get notice of the annual meeting, and even that was something that I don't feel was done on the up and up. The meeting was scheduled for March 23rd, physically on site at Vacation Village at Parkway. They mailed, or the pre-sort date on the envelope notifying us of the annual meeting was on March 11th, and it did not arrive until March 14th. So barely a week uh, between receipt and when the meeting was, and there was no way to attend remotely, no Zoom, no nothing. And again, it was interesting because I happened to be in Florida, came home on the 22nd, and if I had known that the meeting was on the 23rd, I would have stayed and attended that meeting.
Wow. And what I'd like you to do is call Vacatia and tell them, you can give them the link to this show and say, we've heard that Vacation is more accommodating, and
Mhm.
this is a fluid situation. We'd love to have return guests that have
Okay.
follow-ups to their situation. So you go ahead and try to do that. And it's good to submit your report in writing to them. And also, we learned that your representative is Representative Paul Tonko. We met our board president, Sheila, that is trying to be released from Club Exploria. She's got the same representative, and they couldn't have been nicer to us. So this is pretty exciting timeshare times, Mark. And thanks for helping with the show today.
No
We
problem.
really appreciate it.
No problem. And there's definitely some great advocacy work that you're doing and all along those lines. So we're going to end the show, but definitely I am very proud of the work that you're doing. And I know that this is definitely one of the top rated shows here on the network. And we're always glad to get the support from the leadership like Nick and Kim, and of course myself as well. But definitely you're doing some great job and some amazing job. So we look forward to hearing more changes being made and in a positive nature. And definitely we want people like Lois to get to the justice that they deserve and everything like that. So we're definitely looking forward to that happening as well. So on that note, we're going to get out of here. Don't forget to check out the resource library because that'll be immediately available afterwards as well. So definitely, definitely.
I'm saving episode 100 for Kim and Sheila to talk about our DC adventure.
Sounds good. So we'll be looking for that for episode 100, which is coming up in 2 more weeks. In 2 more weeks, they'll be having that episode.
I can't believe it.
Yep.
Yes.
100.
Centennial.
Yep. Centennial episode. So right now we're getting ready to get on out of here. No problem.
Thank you, Lois.
Yep.
Thank you.